Mr. Looi, thank you very much for that very comprehensive and very interesting overview. And let me just say to our audience, dear ladies and gentlemen, this is now an opportunity for you to pose your questions, both to Mr. Looi and also to State Secretary Kastrop. Please use our question window for that. You'll see it right below the chat window on your screens on the right-hand side, and you can also send a short commentary via the chat if you like. And we do just have a couple of questions that have already come in, so I will pose those to our speakers. And the first question that has come in to us from a, I presume, student or perhaps professor or faculty at the University of Indonesia is this: consumer activities in the digital age are besieged by growing problems related to the complexity, opacity, and uncertainty around the use of personal data, as well as misleading, unethical, and fraudulent commercial practices. What are the challenges that consumer rights protection is facing in the digital age? Dear State Secretary, perhaps you want to list, let's say, the top three, because that is a very big question.
And I think this is the real big question we all face. And I think what is mentioned here is really, I think, the entire core of what we need to tackle. And I think my first takeaway is something which was already mentioned by my predecessor in speaking. I think, and this is really the international cooperation. I think if we have complexity, opacity, uncertainty, we really try to strive for a kind of a global understanding. What do we mean with that? And this is not just a quick and fast shot. I think this will really also need that we discuss our societies, how they are working, how can we empower people, how can we give control, and this is one very important issue, that those who give the data, who deliver the data, and this is of course very useful that they give the data, they deliver them. I think people have to be safe that they are not used against them, either in breaching the privacy, or the other issue, make economic models of natural monopolies, which in the end will destroy competition and then also consumer benefits. So we really need to bring this on a global level in the end. Of course, we have all to do our homework, but then we should discuss it in the international fora with the help of the G20, with the help of the OECD. I think this is all. This is, I think, my message to tackle this flower pot which was presented here by the question.
Thank you very much. And I want to come back and dig a little bit deeper in a moment on the question of international cooperation. But first of all, to Mr. Looi, the same question. You also outlined a broad range of risks. Which are the main ones that really keep you up at night as in your capacity as head of division?
Thank you very much. I think one of the main challenges is really the mastery of technology. We are very concerned because for whatever legislative approaches and also the strategy that we implement, we would try not to be like, one step behind what the perpetrators are doing in terms of the deployment of their technology. Apparently, we should ensure that our technology is actually moving faster and ahead of the perpetrator and the organized crimes, because they do have access and deep pockets, and they're able to ensure that these technologies would be able to be used to manipulate and also to avoid and circumvent all the steps that we might take to try to stop them and enforce the laws that we have sort of passed. But other than that, also the consumers themselves must also play a very strong role, and I think this is when education is very important to start off from very, very young, because I understand that if there are really issues such as this, which is very challenging, and also then we really need to start them off at a very young age to understand that when you deal with the internet economy and all that, you have to ensure that your common sense is not being surrendered. And then if you sense there's red flags, you must be able to act on it and to know when not to trust website that you're on. But more importantly also is because in terms of the consumers, in terms of numbers, there's so many of us, and I believe, and also we have so much more resources than those who want to abuse and manipulate this system. I believe in the longer term, we should be able to win this game and not to allow them to exploit us. Thank you.
Mr. Looi, can I just ask you one follow-up on the issue of raising public awareness and providing consumers with more information? That is a key part of your strategy, and you outlined the different aspects of that. Are you concerned, though, about information overload? Is there a point at which are there limits to empowering consumers by providing more information?
I fully appreciate your question, Ms. Crane. In fact, what I have in mind is, really not about just, just pouring information and then overloading them, but really to help to address these information at the most basic level. Like, for example, developing an icon. When you look at a particular icon or a red flag, or maybe one or two words,
Mr. Looi, I'm just going to interrupt you there because we are having some breakup. Maybe we're going to give your online connection a chance to restore itself, and I will go briefly to the State Secretary. Mr. Looi, I don't know if you can hear me, but
education.
There we go. Better. Okay, I think we're going to work on improving your connection. Let me just pose the same question to State Secretary Kastrop. State Secretary, clearly there are risks associated with information overload. What would you say are the most crucial pieces of information we need to get to consumers, and how can we avoid overloading them with information and thereby undermining the goal of raising awareness?
Yeah, I think the most important information the consumer may need is what is happening with his behavior in the digital rooms. So, and this is about data. This is about leaving a trace in the digital rooms, and that this is then reused. And I think this is all the critical things. So this will empower artificial intelligence, but this will also empower via artificial intelligence and learning machines. Also kind of endangering your privacy. It will put you into dark patterns. You can be manipulated. You see, there is no public curation within the internet. You have just to rely on the safety itself. There's a general regulation. But I think the main issue would be what is happening with the informations and the traces you leave in the internet. You can do this, of course, a bit with empowerment and literacy, but we may also need a kind of a societal structure for that. So what institutions in the digital room can help the individual consumers, maybe also for a kind of a collective redress. And this, of course, can be the state, the public, but I think most important is probably that we also have an institutional design in the digital rooms, on the platforms, within the platforms, where you have a kind of a collective redress possibility, for instance, via data trustees or data intermediaries, who may also be able to check algorithms which are used on you. So I think we need this public oversight, we need regulation, empowerment, digital literacy, but we may also need a new, say, societal institutional design in the digital rooms, where people can go at it also quickly. You see, if it's about regulation and the law, this will take time. It's necessary to have a regulation, to have a law, but much more important is that consumers, civil society can immediately react to fraudulent issues, to unsafe products, or to dark patterns.
Thank you very much. Let me try and see whether Mr. Loi's connection is better now. Mr. Looi, unfortunately, I stopped you in midstream there. If your connection's better, you're welcome to pick up where you left off in regard to the potential of information overload for consumers. And I would add another question as well, because the State Secretary just talked about the importance of ensuring that business adhere also to codes of conduct. You yourself mentioned that, but I would have a similar question on that point, which is how far voluntary codes of conduct really take us. Of course, there are a lot of economic incentives for business to use some of the manipulative devices we're talking about. So perhaps join up your answer on voluntary codes of conduct for business with information and public awareness for consumers.
Yeah, thank you very much. As far as voluntary compliance is concerned, of course, that would definitely be a place in which we can start by developing awareness first on the part of the consumers, and also the need on the part of the businesses to ensure that the practices comply with certain international standards. It will have to be a graduated and step-by-step approach. You can't just go straight in and start to impose laws and making it mandatory, and it also takes a long time as well. There's a need to develop, of course, some kind of a culture of awareness of ethical behavior, not only on the part of the businesses, but also whoever that access the internet for the purposes of the various business transactions that they go into. And insofar as building awareness is concerned, of course, a very important aspect of it is our own common sense. Whilst it is important to have a lot of activities and education and awareness that's being carried out in the environment, we must also rely and actually believe in our own intuition, our own judgment, and also our to know that we are able to tell when we are going to be taken in for a ride. So it is important to highlight those education, but it's also important to build their confidence within their personal assessment of the digital environment around them. And finally, I suppose I just want to add that we are not alone as far as the consumers are concerned. There's a need for peer references. There's a need for us to check with our friends, check with our communities and neighbors. If we come across, like for example, a deal which is like too good to be true, chances are it is going to be too good to be true and all that. And so we should refrain from parting with our monies and all that. And a lot of these are really just common sense to begin with. And sometimes it's very unfortunate to hear of a lot of the vulnerable and the marginal, falling prey to all this. But I believe the information and campaign must continue to be done, not only just in the main languages, but also in the local languages as well, in the local languages, because like in ASEAN, we've got like many different types of languages and communities, and this takes time to be translated. And I believe the work has to be continued on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let me now, in our remaining time, pick up just a little bit on that theme of international cooperation and how we can share best practices. At the end of Mr. Loi's remarks, dear State Secretary, he talked about looking to see what might be relevant for ASEAN, for Southeast Asia, within the new scope of the EU approach in the Digital Service Act and the Digital Markets Act. Perhaps you could just delve a bit deeper for us, if you would, as to where you see the sort of centerpiece of those two approaches and what you think might be transferable to a different set of cultural circumstances. What's the heart of the matter that perhaps could transcend regional differences?
Yeah, that's a tricky question, and it's not that easy to answer, to be very honest. But nevertheless, I think if we start with the Digital Services Act, I think there are two main issues at stake. One is what we discuss here mainly. This is the so-called transaction side. It's what was happening on trading platforms. I think there, of course, it's really important that the big global players really take on their own responsibility here. So it's about the liability, and the great platforms cannot just say we just bring demand and supply together. We are kind of a neutral intermediary, as these platforms also start to produce own products, and I think they have to take some, consumer protection on themselves, and they cannot just say we are free of any liability what is happening on our platform. And I think this is one issue for sure, I think, which will be true also for the Asian countries as well. So that's one part, and I think and this is then all about micro tracking on advertising, on dark patterns, which was already mentioned here in the room. The other side I would like to highlight is the so-called interaction side, and this is a bit about hate speech, bullying in the net, that people are were forced in the end, for instance, to drop out and say, I do leave the digital discourse, and this is so-called silencing. So, and this is why we are very eager to have a tight control also in these societal dangerous developments, that people are bullied within the net, they are hate messages, even threats posed on them. And I think this is another issue we really need to control, and this has something to do what we also discuss on the European level, what is to be notice and take down. Yeah, remember what happened in the United States, for instance, with some comments of the former president there. So I think this is really an issue which has probably a bit more intercultural differentiation. I'm very well aware of that. So there is no one-size-fits-all solution, but I think we all want to have stable societies where you can live in the digital rooms without being endangered or forced out. I think this would then also hamper the societal discourse. And last point, maybe on a very global level, and I think this will also be discussed by Monika Schnitzer later here, is about there is a certain relation also of a functioning Digital Services Act for global competition. So there is also an issue there that a well-done consumer protection can also help to control, market positions which have a monopolic structure, and which will then in the end hamper consumer benefits and consumer rents.
Thank you very much. Let me go to Mr. Looi and ask for your response to that. And what we're essentially hearing is that we can't simply assume that roles in the digital space are analog to what we know in the real world, but we're hearing from the State Secretary, we need to really take a look at the functional role that different actors play and how they interrelate in the digital space, particularly in regard to digital marketplaces, online marketplaces. Does that resonate with you, and what kind of challenges does that pose for policymakers in Southeast Asia?
Well, of course, over in Southeast Asia, unlike the European Union, we don't have a union, but we are an association of 10 different countries, 10 different set of laws. So, of course, what we are doing now is to develop those domestic legislation so that we approximate some kind of a convergence, maybe with a longer view of having a more unified kind of laws. The strategy is concerned to contain and to address the scourge in the digital economy. So it's not going to be one particular stakeholder. It's going to be a holistic partnership involving both the platform owners, the brand owners, the consumers themselves, the government agencies, and also all the various intersectoral government agencies for the purposes of ensuring that we are working hand in hand and with a broad vision to try to address this scourge, because the parties and the opposite people that we are working at are the organized crimes. And they are very well organized. So we have to be more organized than that. And then because we do have a lot of resources, and then we do have all the various strategies and also the regional platform for this to happen. So I believe in the longer term, this platform and also the challenges of the digital economy can be addressed, provided that we work together and not think only about our own self-interest and also our interest from the point of view of business or whatever. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Looi Teck Kheong, Head of Division at the ASEAN Secretariat, for sharing your thoughts with us. And I would like to also say to the audience that I'm sorry that sometimes we had some dropout on that line. Nonetheless, you have shared with us very, very interesting thoughts about where ASEAN is going in this very critical area. And I'd also like to thank State Secretary Kastrop for sharing best practices and for giving us an overview on what is being done here in Germany and Europe to enhance consumer protection, particularly in connection with online marketplaces. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, we now have an opportunity to take a break. I so much wish that we were all together and we could enjoy some fellowship while we perhaps get a bit of refreshment, but we will take this break virtually and reconvene here in exactly 15 minutes to dive deeper on the issue of how we empower consumers, how we provide them with the information that they need to make truly informed decisions in online marketplaces. So come back in 15 minutes, please, for that very interesting session. See you shortly.